Oh, and we are live today. Thank goodness. The alternative would have been awkward. Oh my goodness. I guess it's just me today. Again, Nita had things to do, but she forgot to tell me until the last minute, so I didn't have time to like mentally prepare. So that's okay. That's okay. I mean, granted, the vlogs are a lot more fun when she's on, but the show must go on. Oh my goodness. So good morning, everybody. It is Monday, March 9th, 2026. And the parakeets are really acting up because I have a window open because it's finally nice out for a change. Oh my goodness. So like I said, it's just me. So I guess I might as well just get this started because I certainly I am not ready for this. But here we go.
Anxiety! That means I'm in my shell and have a hard time expressing myself. I find it difficult to engage with others. So everyone shut the up because my anxiety is up here right now.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, it's like so today's just me. Oh my goodness. So good morning, everybody. Good morning. I guess we're all just like slowly waking up. Cuz like I said, today is actually for the first time a nice day outside. I think it's supposed to go up to the 60s. So I have the windows open and it's like just finally airing out the office, which it desperately needed after being like all all what is it, closed up and everything. So oh, it's like my smile looks so desperate. Yeah. Because like I said, I'm always I do this show with Nita, and she only told me at the last minute that that she wasn't going to show up. So I didn't have time to mentally prepare for doing a show on my own. Because usually, if I know I'm going to do a show on my own, I kind of like set because you know what it is. It's like I'm ready to like have a conversation with another person. And now it's just it's just me and you guys. So that's just what it is. It'll take me so I just need to warm up a bit and we'll kind of get into the groove of it. So like I said, yes. So it's so the snow has finally melted, and because of that, it left behind all this garbage that the snow usually hides here. So that's also another thing that I'm gonna have to tackle after the show, which is where I also have my mind at as well, because it's like everything's looking really, really rough. I mean, a snowstorm is nice on that like first couple of days when it's all nice and fresh and clean. But in New York, that doesn't last very long. It's like everything just turns into, as Josh Johnson would say, wet New York. So, and then it just gets like everything gets all dirty and grimy. And I had no idea. Like, I don't even know where, like, once the snow melts and you see all the garbage that's left behind, it's like, where did this stuff come from? It was not here when it snowed. And it's not like we saw, like it was on top of the snow during the week. It's just like I don't know where all this mess comes from. So that's also another thing that I have to tackle. But at least it's nice out for a change. You know, so yeah, so I guess to like get this started. So hello everyone. Hello everyone. My name is Daphne Lage, and I'm a cartoonist, illustrator, and comic book artist from New York. Because I just mentioned that before. And plus, that's my old intro, which I'm trying to like change. But of course, now I have it memorized. I'm a comic book artist publishing since 1992, and I am known for the furry fantasy adventure Tall Tales and my new adult romantic fantasy drama, trying to find the right genre for this thing. Ego Raven, Heir of the First Unicorn, which you can read both online at egoworks.com. That's EGOWORKS. And also, speaking of Ego Raven, I have the Kickstarter is running right now. The link is in the chat and in the show notes. This is for Ego Raven issue 12 of this 16 issue series. So like I said, chat and show notes, the link. We have 21 days to go on the campaign. But I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And yes, I see you, my beautiful eyeball people watching from regions beyond. If you are joining me from Facebook, please come on over to YouTube, join the sexy people in the chat, keep them company. You know, because Facebook so far has been working fine. Because I know in the past that we've had problems with Facebook kind of like disconnecting us or not connecting correctly at all. So you know, so it's working so far. So if you are joining me from Facebook, welcome. But just to be safe, come on over to YouTube and make sure you like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever my shows go live. Oh, hello. Good morning, Dr. Midnight. Very nice. Very nice. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So a couple of things. Like I said, actually, let me just bring this up to talk about it a little bit. So, like I said, the Kickstarter for Ego Raven, Heir of the First Unicorn, issue 12 is live. Thank you so much to the 96 people who have raised $3,317 for the campaign. We have 21 days to go. And for those of you who have who already pledged, thank you. And for those of you who are just seeing this for the first time, Ego Raven is my comic book series. It's the story of a unicorn princess exiled into the mortal realm who trains to become a knight, hoping to win a king's favor and save her people. In issue 12, Ego Raven, the rightful heir of the enchanted kingdom of Edenron, faces the elf prince Rillian and a trio of elves from her past, challenging her right to lead and rule. Even with her friends by her side, the unicorn princess is forced to prove herself again, not only to protect her home, but the entire realm. This is a sword and sorcery fantasy with a soap opera twist, featuring character relationships under stories with unicorns, elves, dragons, and furries. And thank you so much, Dr. Midnight, for his donation to the channel. Thank you so much. It's always, you don't need to do that. Nobody needs to do that, but I appreciate it so much because yes, there's always monthly streaming bills to take care of. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Another campaign that we have, Indie Comics Network, is also going to run probably in about a month. It's going to go live. This is our first foray into publishing other people. Instead, we've spent all this time publishing our own stuff. Now this is our first campaign that we're going to be running for somebody else to help, because Rod Espinoza has his comic Adventure Finders that he has been running on his Patreon. If you don't know who Rod Espinoza, you might know him from the book The Courageous Princess. I know that that's where I first heard about him, and he's done a lot of work for Antarctic Press and Dark Horse and other companies as well. And he has been serializing this story on his Patreon, like I said, and this is going to be the first time that it's going to be collected in a trade paperback. So it is a fantasy adventure, and it's kind of like a Dungeons and Dragons, Lord of the Rings with a smidge of Game of Thrones in it. And but it's like, look, I put together the book to get it, like to get some we're going to get some proofs done of this, and this is a book that I want this book. The story is very, it's lighthearted, but it's still serious enough that it doesn't like feel goofy, like it has like real stakes in it. And I found myself really sucked into it when I was putting the files together and putting the campaigns together for it. So yeah, so it is on pre-launch right now. Let's see, where am I? Oh, hey Lou. And the link for this is also in the chat and in the show notes as well. Like I said, we're probably going to launch this in about a month. So make sure you hit that notify me button right there, so you get an email from Kickstarter the second it goes live. Hello. Welcome, Dopa Dalkin. Hello. So this is going to be the Indie Comics Network's first foray into publishing, and I hope you all can help make it successful for us, so we can bring more creators who, for some reason, they can't do Kickstarters, like in Rod's situation. He's in the Philippines, so Kickstarter doesn't run from there, so we have to do it for him, or we're doing it for him, because he literally cannot run a Kickstarter. So yes, so if you help make this campaign successful, hopefully we can bring other creators into the fold and help them run Kickstarters as well. And thank you so much for the 55 people who are already following the pre-launch page for Adventure Finders. So that's kind of like the housekeeping that thank you, Lou. Thank you. You can do it. Also, speaking of Eager Raven, because I'm going to be constantly talking about it until the campaign ends. So if you don't know already, Eager Raven issue 12 is complete, and this is my proof copy for it. So if you pledge to the campaign, you're not going to be waiting that long to get the issue or any of the books. For any of the books. I do play games, but not the type that you can play on YouTube without getting banned. Right now, my favorite game that I'm playing is a visual novel RPG called Seeds of Chaos, and it's an adult visual novel that I actually based my graphic here for my comic. I did a cosplay image illustration for it based on the main characters from that game. That's how much I like it so much. But other than that, it's like I'm not really like into games a lot. You know what? I'm the type that likes to watch run-throughs, like watching other people play the games rather than actually playing the game myself. But like I was saying, issue 12 is complete. This is the printed issue that you're all going to get when you pledge to the campaign. And because the file is ready, I am the books are I'm going to be sending out the files to the printer within a week of after the campaign is done, and then hopefully 2 weeks after that I can start shipping out the books, so you don't have to wait that long. And of course, I had to put it in my pile. So just to show everybody, this is every Eagle Raven issue that I have kickstarted and published since 2021, and the pile just gets bigger and bigger, gets taller and taller. And to think that there are 4 issues left to this series. So if anybody wants to know how serious I am with completing this series, I'm very much so. Very much so. And I just find it really, it's such a high to be able to put another issue in the pile, so it's just really funny. Like, this is a book that technically I have been working on for like the past 20 something years. I mean, Eagle Raven started off as just a mascot for my portfolio site, and all of a sudden, and all of a sudden it's like I had to do a comic about her, and she turned into like an actual character. So it's just really funny. Like, I don't know, it was just not funny, but just amazing how much can happen in like 6 years, 5 years. I did start seriously publishing it in 2021. In the 20 years that I started doing the comic, I was just uploading it whenever I felt like it to my website. Like just slowly building it up and getting the story together. And only in these past 5 years has everything really, really come together. So like I said, there's 4 more issues that go into this pile. So, also another thing that I also got proofed for it is the volume 3 trade paperback, because issue 12 ends off the trade. So I figured, just like, you know what, I might as well get these books proofed as well. And so this is the finished trade paperback for volume 3 that this will be offered on a later campaign later this year. And I also did a sample of the same trade as a digest, more like a manga-ish size. It's not exactly a manga size, but it's close. So this was the size that I decided to go with, because manga really does have a lot of different sizes depending on the books. Like 7 Seas uses a different standard from like actual Japanese publishers, and there are like some other books as well. Actually, 7 Seas uses several different standards. I know Tokyo Pop supposedly set the American manga standard size, but nobody really follows that. I guess they just print it however they feel like they need to print it. So I felt like this was the best middle ground between an American trade paperback and a manga size, so that eventually I can offer up different formats for, and people can buy the format that best serves their shelving. I guess, so yeah, so this is also another pile that I was happy to put my books on. So these are volumes 1, 2, and 3 of Eagle Raven that, again, I am just absolutely thrilled to have gotten this far. And I don't, it's just the thought that I don't have that much to go on this series. Finishing this work is like my big goal for this year. So, and then it's like, so that way, once I finish once I finish this series, then I could finally finish the last 2 issues of Tall Tales, Tears of the Mother, which is my other series, my furry series. I have like these 2 issues that are just left, so I just want to I want to finish those this year, as well. So far so good. It's just just getting through it. The funny thing is that at the beginning of 2026, it felt like that's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have plenty of time to finish it, and we're on schedule and yada yada. And now it's like we're already in the second week of March, and I'm like, well, holy shit, where's this time going? So, but but I'm still confident. I'm very confident that I'll be able. Right now, I am working on issue 13. I'm about 6 pages into issue 13. I want to finish as much as I can of that by the end of the month. So that I can kind of like get ahead of myself when the next campaign for the trade paperback goes live, and then I'll be able to offer up the next issues rather consistently after that. So we'll see. Oh, Dope Adult, it's like, oh, I have some of those books. Oh, thank you. I hope you're enjoying those. So another thing that happened this week, very important comic book news that I wanted to talk about for a little bit, is the release of the Gorillaz 9th album. If you haven't noticed from the title of the show, I have been this has been my new obsession for the past couple of weeks, and it is important comic book news because this is the Mountain, which is the 9th studio album by Gorillaz, which is created by Damon Albarn of Blur and Jamie Hewlett, who you would know from Tank Girl. So he's a comic book artist. So the Gorillaz coming out with a new album is comic book news as far as I'm concerned. And I have just been obsessing on this album since it dropped. And actually, the when I first realized Gorillaz had come out with a new album, I didn't know that they were even coming out with a new album. I think the last album that I have from them is Demon Days. I completely forgot to pick up like Plastic Beach and Song Machine. So I'm a little behind. But the reason this one really caught my attention was because they put out an 8-minute short film, which is technically 3 music videos that they edited into one little mini movie. And what was really impressive of this video, so it's the I think it's called The Mountain, the Moon Cave, and Sad God. And what was really impressive about this video, it really, really stood out for me, like the visuals of it, was they purposefully designed the animation for the video, for the short film, to be based on 70 like kind of like late 60s, early 70s Disney movies. So we're talking about like 101 Dalmatians and The Jungle Book, specifically those 2 books. Although in that time period, like The Rescuers would have been in there as well, like that time period. But they specifically based the short film, the animation that they did on The Jungle Book, especially, that the references are very obvious in it. And 101 Dalmatians, especially since 101 Dalmatians was the first movie that Disney used like a Xerox technique, where they were Xeroxing pencils onto the acetate, to make cells, as opposed to hand drawing them in. And what that allowed them to do, it's like, one, save time. I don't know if they actually saved money, but they probably did, because in animation, especially, time literally is money. that's why the cheaper the animation, like like the less time they literally spend on it, but I guess that could be like anything in the arts. The less money you spend on it, the less time is also spent on it. So what they did was, instead of hand inking drawings onto the animation cells where they're then painted, they decided to use a Xerox effect, and to use literally a Xerox machine. And what that allowed them to do was to take the pencils straight and Xerox them onto the acetate, and then they painted that instead of inking. So they skipped the inking process. And what that allowed them to do was to keep the integrity of the sketch lines, which allowed for, I don't know, like a different kind of feel to the animation that wasn't there before, because now it's like you could like now all of a sudden the lines themselves had a lot of movement, although it did lead to like it's kind of like when you're used to like the really like the style that Disney was using before that point, and then they kind of leaned into this more like modern or they kind of ushered in a more modern looking animation style. Um, it's just different. I know, of course, there was a lot of detractors, but it was different. And because of that, they allowed themselves to play overall with the style of the way these movies looked. And like, even though, like, especially if you look in the backgrounds, if it's like there's still a certain level, there's still an accuracy to the backgrounds, but it's a lot more stylized. It has more in relation, like it has more related to the stylization of like Sleeping Beauty, where it's like very, very stylized, but again, still highly accurate. But then again, I think that basically all Disney movies have that type of thing with the backgrounds, where it's like, they're these these are these are pieces done by skilled artisans, and you can tell. So it's like, no matter, so even though they're going a little quirky with the artwork, you can still sense that level of skill in the work, you know? And that was the thing with the new Gorillaz short film, is that they wanted to imitate that, where it's like all the backgrounds were hand painted. They were hand painted in both, I think, like gouache and watercolor, and then they layered them digitally. But the thing is, because they were so determined to imitate this style, and also especially what they wanted to imitate was the usage of the multiplane camera, um, which originally was this giant contraption of cameras and glass panels, which allowed you to have different layers of artwork to create depth in the final in the final film. And it was a very physical thing back in the day. It's like you literally, like, it's like you look up a multiplane camera, and it's like it's this huge, it's like, depending on how many layers you had, you needed a ladder to get to the top of the camera. It was a whole thing, right? And they wanted to imitate that, but like it's a lot easier in the computer. But what they did, what the directors did, was they gave themselves rules, because computer technology allows them to do anything, essentially. So what they did was that they gave themselves very strict rules as to how they were going to do this short film, where it's like the animation was done by hand. The backgrounds were done by hand. Pretty much everything was done by hand, and then digitally put together in the computer, but with 1970s parameters. So where an original multiplane like in the computer, you can have, like, I guess the program that they use, they can have like 36 layers of whatever. Although, yeah, but On an actual multiplane camera in the 70s, you were only limited to 8 layers. So that's what they did. They limited. It's like, okay, we have access to 36 layers, but we're only going to use 8 because this is what we're trying to accomplish, this visual language of this particular animation. And like, I was even surprised if you watch the video. So there's an ending sequence where there's the symbol of the whole mountain that they use for the whole album. There's that it traces out in light. Um, and I watched the documentary and found out that that's not digital either. That's literally they had like hand sewed out the shape of the mountain, and then they flashed a light. It's all analog. They flashed a light to make that effect. Very old school. And then they filmed smoke separately, and then combined everything to create what I thought was a digital, was a laser, making the mountain symbol. And turns out it was all analog. That even like the videos for like the other songs that they did for the album is as much analog and minimal digital work as possible. Oh, hi, Melissa. Hello. Yeah, it's like, yes, definitely. All the birds are in the background. Yes. Melissa says analog animation techniques are so cool. Yeah. And it was like, and that's what made the movie stand out. And then it's like, there was just like, and then it's like, I'm fascinated by the movie, right? And then the songs are complete bangers, so it's like, it took me a while. Like, I was like, like listening, like just running the YouTube, running that video constantly because I just couldn't get enough of the music. And then I finally realized, I was like, oh, wait a minute, isn't this available for digital download? So I got that, right? Because I would have loved to have gotten the vinyl, but I don't have a record player. So I couldn't have played it. They even put out cassettes. That's how retro everybody is getting right now, that they even put out a variation of the album on cassette. So I've just been listening to this entire album like nonstop since I downloaded it a week ago. And what I really enjoy about the album is that the music, like, even though like the mountain, the moon god, the moon cave, and the sad god, like, I knew those songs because of the video. I kept watching the video over and over. Like the rest of the songs, like this is an album you really kind of have to sit with in order to like at least I found myself really having to sit with the album and like really listen to it and pay attention to really get the feel of it, right? To like, and then it's like the more I listened to it, the more I listened, I was able to catch like all the influences, the other influences that are in the music, right? So the whole theme of the album is about grief and reincarnation and facing death, and and moving with those feelings, right? Because the story goes that Damon's and Jamie's fathers both died very close to each other. Like, I think like within 10 months of each other. Damon Albarn's father passed, and then like 10 months later, Jamie's father's passed. And up until that point, if I understand the story correctly, they kind of had a strained relationship, Damon and Jamie. And after that point, after both their fathers died, Damon invited Jamie to go to India with him. And I guess it's like in that trip, they I guess it's like they really like reconnected creatively and started working on this album inspired by that trip. So this trip is very East Asian, Middle Eastern, Northern Africa, heavily inspired. And honestly, I think out of the 3 albums out of the 9 that exist, I have 3 of the albums. So I have the original Gorillaz, I have Demon Days, and I have this one, The Mountain. And honestly, out of the 3 albums, I really do think the Mountain is my favorite. Um, because like I said, it's like you really have to sit with the music. And after a while, it's like it was just really funny to see like which songs resonate strongly. And then like the more I listened to it, like other songs would be like, oh, this is my favorite, this is my favorite, this is my favorite. And it was all like really dependent on my mood as to which song would be my favorite. And to tell you the truth, like right now, it's almost impossible for me to say which, because I love the title song, The Mountain. Love it. It's all instrumentals. And it's just like, and I think what's really funny about that song is that um it kind of like there's this little riff in it that actually reminds me of Be Our Guest. Like you can like I've literally caught myself going, be our guest, be our guest. It's like, and it goes with and it's like, so I don't know if that's deliberate or not, but it's there, and I don't think it's like, and whether I'm projecting into it or not, it's like I really don't care. It's like it was funny at first, um but then I'm like, wait, but this song, it's still, you know and then Moon Cave is, I just, especially with the animated sequence, especially with the short film, Moon Cave, when they get to the sequence where they're in the cave and the hieroglyphics and the glyphs um come to life, and it's who sings that? Let's see. So hold on. Yeah, David Jolicoeur of De La Soul, and who's I forgot Black Thought. Um, they do they do the rapping that goes over the glyph scene, and it's just like the entire glyph scene was animated by one person. you know, and and it's like, and just like the way the music and the rapping go, like interconnects with that scene, it's just like I listened to Moon Cave just for that section, right? But honestly, I think the song that actually it's 2 songs that kind of like switch back and forth. Um, is Damascus and Manifesto. Those 2 songs, it's like those 2 songs, like I cannot do anything else but bop when those 2 songs come on. Um, but just this morning though, there's the song The Lying God, which kind of like really, like all of a sudden that's like going on, no, this one's really good too. Like the entire song is just bangers. It's just bangers. But the thing is that it takes a while, it takes a little bit for you to realize that, because a lot of people are saying that this is either their best album or their worst album. And so far, the people who call it the worst album, they haven't really said anything that convinced me that, I don't know, that that they were like, they're, that they haven't given me a good reason as to why they consider it the worst album. I mean, that's, yeah, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. It's like, maybe it's not to your taste, but to say it's their worst album, no, no. But like I said, it's like the amount of influences that I catch in the music, like it's like, because also the thing that I'm pretty sure is deliberate is that there's a really big Pink Floyd through line. Like there are some songs where it's like you can really hear, like you almost expect, you know, Roger Waters in the background, you know, or something. You know, it's like there's like I can like I know which songs they kind of referenced. Um and you know, just like and I think that that's the thing also that really stood out for me for this the project as a whole, for the mountain as the short film and the album, is that how it wears its influences on its sleeve. And like it wants you to know that these are Pink Floyd references. It wants you to know that it's completely riffing on the Jungle Book. You know, it's like it wants you to know that. Like it's not trying to hide its references. And I think that, you know, and I think it's different from, I think it's a little different from nostalgia, because it's not trying to imitate, like it's not trying to be those things. It's just incorporating what they felt about those references into what they're doing now and incorporating it as part of their creative story, essentially. And and it kind of made me think about how many creators I have heard kind of say the opposite. That, you know, it's like they'll say that they don't read comics, that they don't read books. You know, that it's like they don't like to watch new movies. Like they're only that, like they only watch, you know, whatever it is their nostalgia is attached to. They'll only watch those movies and they never kind of like grow out of that bubble. And you know, and just the fact that they call themselves writers, but at the same time they say they don't read books, or they call themselves comic book writers, but they don't read other people's comics. Um, where and it's like, how is that even possible, right? It's like that, like it doesn't make sense to me when people say that. And the reasoning that they give is that one, oh, because I don't have time. I'd rather be writing than reading. Which again doesn't make any sense. Yeah, the ninja says ego. Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with that. You know? And it's like, because how can you write if you're not reading? You know? That's like an artist saying they don't look at artwork. Oh, I don't have time to look at artwork. I just want to do artwork. I don't want to look at artwork. I don't want to experience artwork. And it's like, how do you do that? Right? And then the other thing that they usually say is that I don't want my originality tainted with other people's stuff. And that is probably the most ignorant thing, aside from I only want to write, I don't want to read. I mean, like the ignorance of that is just so mind-blowing to me. Melissa says, how do you get new ideas if you don't expose yourself to new ideas? Right, exactly. Right. And but yet for some reason these people have no problem saying with their whole chest that oh, I don't want my originality tainted. Right. And it's like, and holy shit, is that ego? Deninja says no inspiration in the future. Right. Yeah. It's like, but the funny thing is that they're not even creating inspiration now, because it's like, it's not coincidence that the people who say they don't want to corrupt their originality with other people's stuff are the same people who create the most derivative shit you know? And that's the irony of it, right? Because, they think, because there was especially this person back in the day when I used to watch Project Runway. It's one of the really early episodes. And there was this woman who really, really prided herself on not studying other fashion designers. That it's like, oh no, again, she's doing the whole, I don't want my originality tainted by other people's ideas. The problem was that because she didn't know where her influences were coming from, because hate to break it to you, newsflash, you're being inspired whether you know it or not. And what happened was that everything that she ended up making in the competition was just variations, shitty variations of Yves Saint Laurent dresses. But because she didn't recognize that she was taking from those designs, she couldn't pivot from those designs. And every time she brought out and I swear to God, I think the judges kept her on to see how long it took, like how many times she had to create a derivative dress while saying she's being original, Dr. Midnight, I can only take so much from the nostalgia crowd. I appreciate you liking something from a particular period of time in your youth, but read something new. Yeah. Oh my God. It's like, that truly is a pet peeve of mine. It's kind of like everybody screaming, please read there was a tweet that went I forgot how specifically it went, but it was goofing on the situation by saying, oh, person who the only movie they saw was Boss Baby, right? And then they watch something, it's like, oh, this is giving me Boss Baby vibes. And it's like, Jesus Christ, watch something else. It's like people who it's like, it's kind of like the people who base their entire personality on Harry Potter or whatever. It's like, and everything is Harry Potter coded. And it's like, holy shit, read another book. Read a different book. It's like the people, and it's just like, and it's like, yeah, it's like, it's one thing. I had people, here, let me throw this out there. I had people get mad at me for saying this. I had read it. I didn't make this up. I had read it from somebody else. And I was like going, holy shit, that's it. Right. And what they had said is that you're not nostalgic. You're not nostalgic for Mario Brothers, right? You're not nostalgic for Mario. Add 80s or what 80s cartoons or not. You're not nostalgic for 80s cartoons. You're nostalgic for a childhood, for being a child with no financial responsibilities, and you just attached it to 80s cartoons and Mario Brothers or whatever. And I've had people get mad at me for saying that, but I believe that completely, because that's how I see people relating to this shit. Where it's like, unless, like, especially when it comes to like remakes and stuff, like, unless it's exactly like the thing they grew up with, it's garbage. And it's like, I don't know about you guys, but I really, aside from very, very, very few things, very few things, I'm really not nostalgic for a lot of the stuff that I grew up with. I mean, I like them. I think fondly about them. But I can also say at the same time, I am not, it's like, I don't enjoy them now. Like, I grew up with She-Ra and He-Man and Dungeons and Dragons, the Dungeons and Dragons cartoons, especially that one, right? The Dungeons and Dragons cartoon. And I remember when it's like we had gotten the DVD, the collected DVD discs, and we tried. I think it wasn't DVDs; it was CDs at the time. And we tried watching them, and I don't think we were able to get through that first episode, because we're watching it and it's like, holy shit, we are so not 12. You know, we are so not 12. And we couldn't watch it. I can't watch it. Even like, as much as I love She-Ra, and those cartoons were a foundation, you know, I cannot watch those cartoons. So when the new one came out, I really had no opinion on it. It's like, because I tried watching that too, and all it did was remind me that it's like, oh, I am so not the demographic for this. And to watch grown men lose their fucking minds trying to retcon how their feelings about She-Ra, and it was just like, are you guys okay? You know, like, it really gets like, are you okay? Dr. Midnight says, for example, there are so many variations of the 1990s aesthetic. A few I may like, but I want to see something different from what I grew up with. Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, it's like, you know, yeah, and to see, like I said, it's like, and to see people like completely lose their minds over this new She-Ra cartoon. And it's like, look, I get it. You don't like it, but it's like, but also, you're a 50-year-old guy. Why are you obsessing over a children's cartoon? You know, over a cartoon that's literally made for 12-year-old girls. Why are you in your feels about that? Right? And that's the thing that really, like, and I think that's the difference. And it's like, and I think that type of attitude really poisons I guess the mentality of a lot of creators, where they confuse nostalgia for inspiration, but they do it in a way where they're ignoring the greater creative atmosphere. And like I said, so on Project One Runway, it's like, time after time after time, this woman was creating derivatives of all these designer dresses. But because she didn't know what they were, she couldn't recognize it. And because of that, she couldn't pivot it into a design that would have been original if she knew what the source material was. You know, and eventually she got kicked off of the show because it just got to a point where she only survived as long as somebody was doing worse than her. But then there came to a point where she was the one doing worse, and they finally let her go. But I always remembered that lesson that they made of her. You know, and you know what's funny? Grown men who most likely did not watch the original cartoon, especially since in every documentary with the creators of She-Ra and Masters of the Universe, whenever they talked about She-Ra, they would always say, no boys watch the show. You know, and it's like these were the creators saying that they had the Nielsen ratings saying boys do not watch She-Ra, and then all of a sudden they put out a new She-Ra cartoon, and all these boys, all these boy men are coming out of the woodwork saying, oh, you're destroying, you know, my childhood. And it's like, you know what? And that's also another phrase that it's like, the second you say that, it's like, that's how I know that idea is true, that it's not the cartoon, it's how you felt in your childhood. You know, and you know, and it's like, well, that's considering how they're acting up. Melissa says men just don't want anyone to have anything nice. Considering how it's like, it's kind of like they're you know, of course, do I really have to say not all men? Do I really have to say that? I'm kind of hoping that everybody watching understands verbal contextual clues to know that I'm speaking generally at this point, and not, if it's not you I'm talking about, I'm not talking about you. But You say it like we're communicating over international waters. You know, um, so same men who got mad at the live Gem and the Holograms movie, right? I mean, granted, I have to admit, I don't consider that a Gem and the Holograms movie because it's not Gem and the Holograms. It's like there was a lot of things missing from like literally it was the type of thing that they only took the name, right? They only took the name, and that's the thing, and that's a studio, right? um Cynically taking a nostalgia and adding it to something that has nothing to do with it. Gem and the Holograms was just a movie about a band, right? And it's like it wasn't Gem and the Holograms, so I'll let them have that one. you know it's kind of like how I, Robot, the Will Smith movie, is not I, Robot, the novel. They just had the rights to the name and just added it. That I understand. You see, those types of arguments I can understand. Kind of like I can understand the arguments with the Amazon Lord of the Rings. You can't even call them like the Amazon, the Ring of Power. The difference between the Ring of Power and Lord of the Rings, the Peter Jackson movies. Like, I can understand, like, story-wise and thematically that, that Amazon was just trying to cash in on a nostalgia, not necessarily kind of like honor the source material, but if you just accept it as this is Amazon's version, it's very easy to write off. Like it's like I understood some of the story complaints, but honestly, it's just like, okay, it's the look. My favorite movie is The Secret of Nim. You will never get me to admit that there's a second movie existing, right? I never said, oh, they ruined my childhood. I own the DVD to the original, right? I don't have to worry about shitty versions, shitty remakes, you know? Um, so yeah, so my point, right, is that, so you have a lot of creators saying that they don't partake in other people's, in other creator stuff because uh oh what was it they made? Gem and the Holograms, K-pop Demon Hunters. Actually, I think K-pop Demon Hunters is more a remake of Rock and Rule because that ending is identical. you know Right. It's like sometimes I wonder if it's more we remember how the show made us think and feel at the time rather than the show itself. Right. That's a part of it. Right. That's the thing about nostalgia. Like I said, it's like I think it's important as creators for us to understand the difference between inspiration and nostalgia. Because like I said, I see too many creators doubling, tripling down on nostalgia, and their work really suffers for that. Right. And the problem is that they don't want to admit that it's nostalgia. They just say, oh, shit was just better back then. Right. But it's like, but there's so much stuff, good stuff being put out now. It's like, if I just listened to decided like, oh, I only listened to 80s music because that was the best music, I wouldn't have even heard of this album. Of the mountain, right? I mean, and also it's like, it's like also it helps too that, speaking of international, it's like it helps too that I also have I have a like for international music as well. So, which I think is a lot of the criticism that this album is getting is that people are not digging the international sound, right? And it's like that kind of reveals a little bit more about that reveals more about you than it does about the album. And people, and it's like and I think that, it's like, right. So there's like, so it just made me think about the difference between Damon and Jamie creating this entire, at this point, I don't want anybody to reboot anything. I really don't, because they're only going to get 30-30 wrong, that was it was 30-30, right? The horse guy. They're only going to get that wrong. They're only going to get him wrong. Like at this point, whenever somebody says, I want them to reboot it, I go, no, you don't. No, you don't. Because people who say that, they only want a reboot as long as the reboot is exactly what they remember. It's like, if it's like, what was it? I was talking about like Blazing Saddles, right? At several episodes ago. And and people keep using that as a benchmark of, oh, they'd never be able to make this movie again, which is not true. Because like I said, it's like they talk about that movie being unmakeable now as if Quentin Tarantino doesn't exist. And the same thing, and it's like, personally, Ben says, personally, they should get the Fast and Furious guy to reboot Mask. The 7th film was basically Mask between the bus and the helicopter. Maybe there are certain things that it could be possible, right? To remake with a modern take. But again, though, like the thing about Blazing Saddles, right? That I said, it's like, these are the people who say that, right? But it's like, you can do a frame by frame, scene by scene remake exactly of Blazing Saddles, not change the dialogue, not change the scenes, not change anything. You just have to use different actors, right? The second you put Taylor Swift in the Madeline Kahn role, that's it. People are losing their fucking minds. It's going to be 3-hour treaties of on YouTube as to how they ruined the movie. Like you could do everything identically, but the second you add in something modern, like just something that reminds you of now instead of right, and like, yeah, and Tropic Thunder. Jesus, I think a lot of people missed the point of that movie. that Tropic Thunder was supposed to be a modern Blazing Saddles. It's like, like this, because I think, and that's part of it, because I think that they want a reboot as long as it doesn't remind them of now. They want it to remind them of then, right? And it's like, this is why you should not cater to nostalgia. Because in the end, that's how you find out it's not the thing, it's the feelings. And the new thing is not going to invoke the feelings from the old thing. And, so going back to, like creators saying that they don't, so they stick to that, right? They stick to their nostalgia, right? And they don't understand how it's affecting their work, because they are putting out really, really derivative stuff, and they're talking about it as if like, and it's obvious they don't recognize they're putting out derivative stuff. They just like, they put out this stuff and then they say, it's like, oh, I've never heard of this before. Well, so it has to be original. No, you haven't heard of it before, but everybody else has. right? Just because you made it a point to be ignorant about the culture at large doesn't mean what you're doing is original, right? But at the same time, you know, you do take, when you're creating something, you are taking from what you know. You are taking from inspiration from what you've already experienced, whether consciously or subconsciously. Because the other example I like to, it's like why is it that we all know Kim Kardashian but none of us watch the show? We don't know. We all know Kim Kardashian. We know what the fuck that stupid bitch is up to, but none of us, I don't know anybody who purposefully watches the show, who ever did. But we all know her and her stupid family, right? Because that's how culture still infiltrates us, whether we know it or not. And that's why it's important to know the culture at large so that you recognize it. So when you put it in whatever it is you're creating, right? You're not mistaking it for something that it's not. You're not saying, oh, this is so original because I've never heard about it. One example, like I think Jose had people on his show where they literally described Elric. They were talking about their cats, like, oh, and what if this, and what if the sword made people evil, and blah, blah, blah. And Jose's sitting there going, that's Elric. That's been that's been a thing, or whatever, but these guys are talking with their full chest that, oh, this was the most original thing they've ever come up with. And that's the key. Those are the key words. If you can say, if you're finding yourself saying, this is the most original thing I've ever come up with, or this has to be so original because I've never heard of it, that's a red flag for your idea. That is the moment where you actually have to go online and use the magical computer thing that has all of the world's knowledge in it and see whether that's exactly the case. Just like with this seamstress who inadvertently took in Yves Saint Laurent dress patterns and spit them out like she thought she came up with the idea, right? And that's the thing. But that there's no original ideas, just only original execution. But you have to know what it is you're doing. You have to understand what you're trying to execute on in order to have your own execution on it, to have your own take on it. If you don't know where it's coming from, you can't really imbue yourself into it. To give everybody an example. So, like I said, I've been doing Ego Raven since I was in college, since before then. It's like I said, it was, I made a portfolio website. I made this unicorn girl who was originally supposed to be a mascot for my website, from my portfolio. That's all she was supposed to be. It was a pseudo self-portrait. The name's a riff on, her name's a riff on it. Her name is actually an original riff. Originally a riff on the idea of ego, the idea of this was a self-portrait combined with ElfQuest fandom. So that's where the name, eventually I came up with the name's own lore that fits the actual story now, that makes sense in the story. But its original identity and name came from her being a self-portrait mascot for my portfolio. So I was, so then it's like there came a point where I was working on the story about a unicorn girl. It's like, you know what? Let me take this character. Let me make this story. Let me kind of massage this story, see where I can take it. It's like, let me do something interesting with it. And and I was kind of like futzing around with it or whatnot. And not being really serious about it, right? Until I was in a bookstore and Anne McCaffrey had published a book named Acorna, which is a sci-fi book about a unicorn girl. And I remembered seeing it. And I remember like getting angry when I saw it. Because it's like, well, one, obviously the whole idea of a unicorn girl is obviously not original because Anne McCaffrey just did an entire goddamn novel about it, right? But at the same time, I didn't want to stop doing my project. It's like, just because Anne McCaffrey did a unicorn girl novel doesn't mean I have to stop doing my story about a unicorn girl. I mean, granted, her book was sci-fi, mine's not, the whole thing, right? But it's like, that's when I started realizing that it's like, conceptually, at its base level, my idea was never going to be original, right? But how I tell this story, how I move forward with this story will be mine. And the most important thing that it taught me, that moment taught me, was that I have to get the story out. You know what? If a unicorn girl is good enough for Anne McCaffrey to base an entire novel on, a unicorn girl is good enough for me to base an entire comic book series on. Yeah, superficially we're the same. But once people read our stuff or even just look at our stuff, because the painting that she has looks nothing like the way I draw Eagle Raven, it's like no one's going to confuse these two stories. Although some assholes have tried to dismiss my story because, it looks like a ripoff of Acorna. It's like, sure, if you think Anne McCaffrey is the only person who came up with a unicorn girl, you go on DeviantArt, type in unicorn girl, and you'll end up with thousands of results, right? So it's like, in and of itself, it's not an original idea. But it's how I tell the story that makes it original. But at the same time, I have so many influences that my story is based on that's also another thing too. At what point, it's like knowing the difference between influenced and homage, right? And being able to mash the two. So it's like, because the thing is that, because, so Eagle Raven takes on a lot. It's inspired by a lot of things. It's inspired, especially, like I said, She-Ra, Ixer 1, Lodos Wars, Dungeons and Dragons, The Last Unicorn. It has all these, and even has recent examples. Like I was inspired a lot by The Witcher, both the series and the books. Because the one thing that I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name, the author of The Witcher showed me, right? Because for some reason, it never occurred to me that even though I'm basing my world on medieval Europe, doesn't mean I really have to stick with that. The whole idea of historical accuracy, which is also like another thing that people kind of like to bring up. I mean, this might be like a kind of like a different thing where it's like people want, like when they look at it like a medieval thing, like, I remember like somebody asking me if Tall Tales was historically accurate. And I go, the shit is about talking foxes. I mean, someone was literally looking at my book, this book. Lodos Wars is, peak. They looked at this and go, is it historically accurate? It's like the shit has talking foxes in it. Why would you even think it's even vaguely historically accurate? Right? But the thing is that people aren't really asking if it's literally historically accurate. What they're really asking without knowing that they're asking it is like, does your world building make sense? Well, like I said, I think that's a different conversation. Going back to inspiration, right? To inspiration and knowing where they come from. And being able to incorporate that into your work pretty much without making a fool out of yourself. When people ask, oh, is this based on this? It's like, oh, I see that. And then it's like, I see people get mad, going, oh, are you saying, right? What do you mean? You think talking foxes didn't fight the Crusades? Impossible. And I too would read that book. But because that's also another thing too, right? When you don't consciously know where your inspiration's coming from, you become very fragile to people asking about, like, oh, this reminds me of that. Or it's like, oh, that reminds me of this. It's like, oh, that reminds me of Disney's Robin Hood. Thank you. It's based on Disney's Robin Hood. That was one of the inspirations. Thank you so much. It's like when they look at the way I draw trolls in here. And it's like, oh, let's see, where's that scene? There's one particular scene that people see. It's like, oh, it's like, oh, you read a lot of ElfQuest, don't you? And I go, yes, I do. Why, yes. And where other people would go, oh, are you accusing me of plagiarism? Are you accusing me of copying? And oh yeah, it's like another group of people who don't read are the loudest voice of historical accuracy crowd, never reading a history book. It's true. always beware of these people. And and it's like, yeah, and I think, and it's like, and I've seen that, and I've seen creators get mad. It's like, oh, stop comparing our stuff to something else. And I go, it's like, look, if you just accepted the fact that your inspiration is on your sleeve, you wouldn't be having a meltdown. It's like, yeah, sorry, not sorry that you're just being reminded, that your ego is being reminded that you're not as original as you want to pretend you are. I mean, Gorillaz puts out that video, the mountain, the moon cave, and everybody in the comments, holy shit, it's like the Jungle Book. Everybody. Do you think that they got mad at that? No, it's on purpose. They want you to make that connection. Because then it's like you'll understand and appreciate what they're trying to do. It's like, I'm not going to hide the fact that I was inspired by Disney, by Don Bluth, by ElfQuest, same thing with Eagle Raven. I'm not going to hide the fact that like this cover, is a reference of a Daredevil cover from the 70s. I just really liked it. I just really liked the layout, and I used it. Was it Daredevil? I don't remember if it was Daredevil, but it or Black Falcon. I don't remember. I took it from a 70s comic, this layout, because it's like I found it that inspiring that it's like, you know what? And I've done that. It's like I've based an entire this comic right here, Eagle Raven, the Unicorn King's daughter. This entire book is a riff on Conan, the Frost Giant's daughter. It's even the title, it's a riff on it. Every panel in this book, in this issue, it's a riff on actual Barry Windsor Smith panels. It's on purpose. I want you to know that. Barry Windsor Smith and I think it was Barry Windsor Smith. There was I forgot the other guy. Actually, I have him credited here. Yeah, it's like Howard, Roy Thomas. It's like Robert E. Howard, Roy Thomas, and Barry Smith. Right? I even copy the way they did the credit in the Savage. I think it was a Savage Sword of Conan that appeared in. I don't remember. But it's like, I want you to know that. Right? It's like I'm not hiding it. I mean, I went out of my way. I went out of my way to put my inspiration on the page. So it's like if someone were to say, hey, that looks like, yes, it does. It's supposed to. Dr. Midnight, you make an excellent point about someone letting their ego get in the way of accepting not being original. I think an important part of being creative is having your ego in check. Absolutely. And that's, and it's like, it's very frustrating to keep seeing that because it's like, they're holding themselves back so much and they don't realize it. And then it's like, these are the same people who are wondering, why isn't their stuff resonating? Right? Because there are other people who are doing the exact same thing, but better. And why are they? And it's not that they're doing it better. It's just that they recognize what they're doing and they're able to actually create something. It's like, look, everybody who does a fantasy comic is doing a riff on either Conan or Lord of the Rings. Okay, that ain't nobody, unless you're Christopher Paolini and you're riffing on Star Wars. Actually, I mean, but it's like everybody is doing a variation of that. There is no fantasy book. Now, mind you, there are people who are trying to actually expand from that, because I've been seeing a lot of like Asian culture based fantasy, a lot of Russian based fantasy. There are people who are trying to take fantasy out of medieval Europe. Essentially, it's like, well, either, like I said, either out of Lord of the Rings or out of that Conan. Why? Because they recognize it. They know where it comes from. And it's like, okay, you know what? Instead of doing this, I'm going to try to do this instead. Right? And the only reason you can do something different, even but like I said, everything is based on Lord of the Rings, Conan, right? Even if you want to do that, which I certainly have no problem continuing the tradition of riffing on Lord of the Rings and Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, there's another one. Everyone's either doing Conan, Dungeons and Dragons, or Lord of the Rings, right? I'm more than happy to do that. That's what I want to do. That's what I enjoy, right? But the thing is like, how do I make this my own? What differences do I bring to the story? Like that type of thing. It's like, and I think that only with knowing what your source material is, what your source of everything is, what you're basing on, right? What right? So what is it that right? And where did that knowledge come from? If you're going to do X, where did X come from? So that where you're going to go with that. Right. And then it's like, that's like, well, other people have done this. How can I do that differently? Right. Or what could I add? Again, going back to The Witcher. Right. So here I am sitting on a foundation of Lord of the Rings and, Lotus Wars, which is based on Dungeons and Dragons anyway. So it's all pretty much the same thing. Right. But what did I want to do? What little things that I wanted to do? Right. I didn't want to make it like traditionally historically accurate. It's like, because in the end, there's like a little bit of Piers Anthony, like where it's kind of like that really, really anachronistic, slightly modern, but not really, but just camouflaged enough. Because in the end, it's like, I didn't want to make something so medieval. I'm not writing for medieval people. So in the end, there's no reason for me to be that historically accurate. Right. So what reading The Witcher and watching the show showed me is that I could do whatever the fuck I want as long as it makes sense in the world building of my story. Because I consider The Witcher the anti-Lord of the Rings. So I wanted to take that, and that was, that was the thing where it's like, okay, I want to be able to be anachronistic, but in a way that it makes sense in my story, that people don't go, that doesn't make any sense. Why is this here? Right. And the main thing that I kind of like, that I put in, is the fact that I have coffee and Swedish fish existing in my universe. And did they actually exist in that time? No. But no one's stopping me. No one's stopping me of putting coffee and Swedish fish in a medieval story. The trick is just putting them in there so that it makes sense in my world building. Because in the end, it's not that people want things to be historically accurate. They just want your story to your world building to make sense. And the only way you can have, and I think that it's related, that your world building can only make sense if you know what you're world building on. It's like, look, it's like I must have done days of research just to kind of get an idea as to the actual historical accuracy of a flush toilet in medieval times. And to and just so I can write it that there was a toilet in the castle. And it turns out there have been examples there have been attempts at flush toilets in medieval castles. But in the end, I'm not writing a story about how flush toilets exist in medieval castles. I just want to be able to say there's a flush toilet in a medieval castle. But I have to know just enough so then when I describe it, it doesn't sound weird. Like, it sounds like it makes sense. That, oh, okay, there's a flush toilet in a medieval castle. There's a pipe system in a medieval castle. I mean, right. I mean, it's, yeah, I don't know. It's like, so yeah, so that was like what I was like, really, what watching the Gorillaz short movie, listening to the album, like I said, these are creators who went out of their way to make sure you knew the references. That and that only adds to the experience of the music, of watching the videos, of watching, the Gorillaz videos, right? And I think that that's something that a lot more creators need to understand, is that if you really want to put your best foot forward in your work, you have to admit that there is a greater culture you have to feed off of, And I'm not talking about mindless consumption. I'm talking about really sitting down and experiencing culture, of listening to albums and really studying that stuff, like really listening to it, going to museums, reading books, Dr. I have to say, I do enjoy catching these morning conversations. Between this and my Adderall, my mind starts to work better. Thank you. Thank you. Starting your day with coffee and Adderall and conversation. I'm not mad. But, so that's something, to really think about. It's like, I just want creators who have caught themselves saying, I don't read, but I write. I'd rather write than read. Like, what is it that you're really doing? It's like, because that, to me, that doesn't sound like somebody who puts a lot of care in what you're doing. Just like you wouldn't trust a movie director who said, I don't watch movies. Like, just saying that out loud sounds ridiculous, right? But why is it that people have no problems, like, there are writers who have no problem saying, I don't read other books? Why is it that there are comic book creators who have no problem saying, I don't read other people's comics? Like, why does that make sense to you? And yeah, and it's like, and if it does make sense to you, like I said, I really question the type of work that you're putting out. And are you really seeing the type of work that you're putting out? Like I said, I think that, yeah, it's like, what? I think there needs to be a little bit more reverence to what we do. I mean, it's like, yeah, I know we do this stuff to to ultimately make money, but there needs to be a certain level of care, especially in this environment of of heavy technology, of generative tech, who could, we have people spitting out books within 40 minutes and calling themselves authors. It's like, the people who flood the market, they're not going to be remembered for anything. Nobody is going to talk to them about their books, but the people who take care, people are going to be talking about this album. They're going to be talking about this Gorillaz video for a long time. People are desperate for care, for, they're desperate. They're desperate for you to care about the work that you're doing. And I think those are the people, and the people who do that are the ones who are really going to get ahead in this environment that we're in. Because to see how many people were in the comments saying how they're desperate for real creativity, for real, like, for texture in artwork, for real, like, handwork, and, this is a market that's exists. That this is a market. People want to talk about, oh, it's like I have to cater to the market. Well, you know what? This is the market that's growing now. We're going full circle. This is a market that's growing. People who want art that looks like the person cared. So the question is, do you care? Do you care? I care. I wouldn't be talking about it if I didn't care. Oh my goodness. So yeah, so we're already a little past the hour and a half mark. I mean, I could just keep going, and I really shouldn't, because I really do got to finally clean out this after snow mess that's in the front. So oh my goodness. So I want to thank everybody for keeping me company today. Hopefully next Monday Nita will be back so we can continue talking more about starting your day with coffee and Adderall. Boy, is that a tagline or what? but you know what? I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So thank you so much, everybody in the chat who kept me company. Thank you so much to all of my beautiful eyeball people watching or listening to me in the background. I hope that you got something out of this, at least was entertained. At least you got work done. Did you get work done while I was talking? Because sometimes that's all you need. You just need somebody to be yammering in the background while you're just getting a task done. And I am more than happy to fill that gap for you. Thank you so much. You could be listening to anything else, but you decided to spend this hour and a half with me, and I appreciate every single one of you for that. Yes, and have a great day. Yes, have a great day, Dr. Midnight. Thank you so much. If you want to learn more about me, and my portfolio and my artwork and my Kickstarters and everything else that I do, you can head on over to my main portfolio site at egoworks.com, EGOWORKS, where you can read Eagle Raven, Heir of the First Unicorn for free. But if you prefer your fantasy, if you want foxes going on crusades, if you want your fantasy to be more of a furry Lord of the Rings adventure, you can follow the link over to Tall Tales. That's TAILSonline.com. And you could read the archive there of over 1,000 pages. It's not quite foxes going on the Crusades, but it's close. And I'm pretty sure if that's what you're into, you will enjoy this as well. And remember that Eagle Raven, Heir of the First Unicorn, issue 12 is on Kickstarter live right now. The link is in the show notes and in the chat. And it's also on the websites so if you want to check out Eagle Raven for free on the website, and then you can head on over to the Kickstarter where you can pick up physical copies of the books while you're there, and also while you're on my website, make sure that you sign up for my newsletter, or you can hit this QR code right here, where you can keep up to date with all of my art, my sketchbooks, my comics, my Kickstarters, the whole thing. And you get a free PDF comics bundle just for joining my newsletter. You get to read Eagle Raven for free, Tall Tales for free, and you also get to try out the Oswald Chronicles for free. So you can check that out just by hitting this QR code right here. So again, miss you, Nita. It's like I would have much preferred if you were here, with me, but we'll save it for next week, so hopefully we'll try again. But thank you, all of you, for keeping me company. So it takes all of you. It takes all of the chat and all of the eyeball people to replace one Nita. So thank you so much for doing that. Oh, and in the words of the ancients, eat your food, moisturize, mind your business, and do the work. Because when you actually do the work, you never have to fake any of your accomplishments. Thank you so much again, and we'll see you next time.